All right. So glad to be here for the first episode of Sebastian Sierp. We're here with Mr. Lee Cruse. Known Lee a while now. Mm-hmm. What a great guy. And
Sebastian Sierp?
Sebastian and Sierp.
And Sierp.
Sierp, yes, like Sierp. That's his last name. My late brother-in-law's German heritage, coming to the fore. But
Sierp.
Sierp, yeah, it's pronounced Sierp.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I had known this, I wouldn't have come on the show.
Why?
I don't know. Just something to say.
What a way to break the ice and start out. And here I was going to ask you for a complete bio.
Well, would you like the complete bio?
Well, I would like to know a little bit of something.
All right. Well, first there was dirt.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then everything grew from that, essentially.
Now, you're right. Now, I've heard stories.
Okay.
But,
Yeah.
but I need you to tell me if they're true.
All right.
Yeah. No, I mean about the dirt.
No, well, it's all true, yeah. What would you like to know? As far as
Well, you know, I know. Okay, so you told me before, and I think it's verified because you're drinking that Ale there, that you grew up in Winchester, right?
I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, how did you get hooked up in the TV world? Because I know you. I mean, did you start out in stand-up? Because I know you do that too.
No, I started radio. My dad called a guy that he knew that I think he bought advertising with and said, can my son, I was studying broadcasting, and he said, can my son get a job? And they found me a part-time job, right? Just like anybody else who begins in radio, where you sort of run the board.
Yeah.
And I did weekends there until I finally, kind of made a niche for myself and worked my way through it. And eventually, about 10 years later, I'm then a morning show guy. I'm also a stand-up comic.
Right.
But everybody was about to be laid off because, as what is very, unfortunately, familiar with radio, conglomerates get gobbled up and companies move in and you get canned. And that was about to happen. So I was on my way to Louisville to do a morning show there with Dennis Dillon.
Oh, yeah.
Who was the program director. And before I left, though, I got a call from Mary West, God rest her soul, who said, would you want to do TV? Because they weren't happy with what was happening with their morning show at the time. And I said, yes. Because in the back of my head, I wanted to be Johnny Carson or David Letterman. So, yes, I wanted to do television, and then that's how that began. So they gave me a shot at it, and I did that forever.
So, like the show you were doing, was it just kind of like a commentary deal? Or?
The radio show?
Right, the radio show.
It was morning radio, so it's a lot of shenanigans in between songs.
Morning traffic.
Now later, while still doing TV, I started doing talk radio, where you forcibly give your opinions to callers who.
Yeah, the Eric Bogosian deal.
Right. The guy's waiting for you in the garage.
Right. Yeah, that was good.
It's a great movie, by the way.
Oh, it is a great movie. Yeah. Man, I love him in Law and Order. He was killer.
Yeah.
So you've done that for a long time. One of the things I really wanted to talk to you about, because it's something that and being in the comedy world and television, I think you might have a different perspective than someone like, say, I don't know, Bill Burr or somebody who's just doing comedy and not a whole lot of, TV type stuff. It seems to me that years ago, like when we were cutting our teeth in the 80s, right, and we're watching what we call classic movies now, like 16 Candles and things like that, that had a certain style of comedy to it. But nowadays, a lot of the comedy I don't get as much. Okay, so
that's because you're old.
Right, yeah, so there's that answer. But something must have changed along the way. I mean, like
it's become fragmented. I think that's it, because you had to have a universal appeal just because the venues were limited. So you had maybe 3 venues, 3 networks, and so you had to make a joke as universally appealing as you possibly could. As to where now you get a platform that is a subset of a subset, and I can direct my comedy just to those people. I can be so introspective, just a few thousand people that get me, I can still make a career because there's a platform for it. So I think that's what you're seeing. That's why a lot of it you don't get because I agree. I'm the same way. You know, I have to search to find somebody that, like Bill Burr, who sort of speaks to me. Because otherwise I'm irritated or I don't understand what is going on. Some of it's age too, I think.
Well, I mean, it seems, I mean, I get the thing about there are these sort of niche comedy markets that people can fall into, and probably a lot more easily nowadays because their technology is such, you know, you get XM and all these other things you can tap into. But still, there remains this thing of the overall cultural thing. Like, for instance, you know, if you go back to the early 80s and Chevy Chase was huge, right? And all these movies that we all thought were hilarious. And you go back and you kind of watch those, you know, and they're still okay. But I mean, we really thought they were funny back then. Now, it might have been that there just wasn't any other water to drink besides that.
Yeah, some of that's true, but I think, I don't know if it's hormone levels for young guys or what. But I will say, things that really, truly were artistic achievements in comedy are still very funny today. Animal House is still funny today.
Right.
Now, it may not be politically correct, but we still know it's funny.
Right, yeah. And regarding PC, to me, PC has nothing whatsoever to do with comedy. Either it's funny or
obviously
it's not,
it doesn't. I mean, that's what comedy is. Comedy is a reflection of pain anyway. So if you're trying to protect somebody's feelings all day long, well, you're never going to get any comedy.
Yeah, it's boring. It's flat, right?
Very.
Yeah. But, you know, you also have, like, say some of the top headliners today that are, you think of as in the biggest comedic roles or the ones that are in the most demand, like, say, Melissa McCarthy, for instance. Okay, her brand of comedy, there's some that I kind of get and I laugh at, and then there's some that I don't totally get. And if that was put out back in the Chevy Chase days, I don't know that it would have flown.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I do. Maybe.
I mean, it's almost like culturally the comedy has changed, which is okay. It's to be expected. I mean, because from culture to culture, it changes anyway, right? Like, I mean, there are a lot of people that don't particularly get into Monty Python, right?
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't, though. I mean,
but you know what I'm saying.
I question that value system if you don't find those guys funny. Or the Marx Brothers.
But you know what I mean. I mean, a lot of people are like, well, I don't. British humor, man. I just don't get it. You know, or
let's not eliminate this too. We're getting dumber as a society.
Well, that's
so maybe there's your answer.
Do we even need to talk about it?
No. People are so much dumber. I mean, listen to the language.
Oh, sure.
You know, that Idiocracy movie is
it's brilliant.
Yeah. It's prophetic, though.
Flew right under the radar.
I mean, we're headed that way. You know, it's a whole wrestling mentality now, as opposed to more refined. So, you know, somebody like Groucho Marx, who blew up the refined system, probably doesn't seem as funny, or Monty Python.
Right.
Since we're all living in the muck now.
And yet, a lot of that, you know, dumbed down Idiocracy level stuff is what's flying today in headlining.
I think so.
Yeah. And what's odd to me is how you can have some stuff that is pure genius because, you know, the comic came up with something that is so true to life, and, you know, he's commenting on something, it's observational comedy or whatever, but it's so true and it hits everybody in the audience, whether he's using flowery language like Miller or if he's referencing 1,000 things that probably half the audience doesn't get.
Well, your example, Bill Burr, is a good one, but I think the genius level to me is Dave Chappelle. I don't think there's a funnier guy
he's funny.
alive right now, and it's brilliant. When I watched that, you know, the last couple of specials he did, I guess on Netflix, I sit there with my mouth open how talented he is to do callbacks that he buried. The reference to get the callback later seemed insignificant at the time. I mean, that's just the subtlety of some of what he was doing.
Awesome.
So brilliant, man. Like, wow, this guy's so good.
You know what's weird about him too is that, you know, Chappelle's show was so good to me. I mean, it was
nobody
fun.
did irony better than Dave Chappelle.
Right.
Nobody.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe ever.
But, you know, I mean, I think there was something about him leaving that show that created even more of an enigmatic type thing for him. You know what I mean? Like, if that show had gone on for 10 seasons or something.
And fizzled out as opposed to
it wouldn't be nearly as impactful as the two or whatever seasons.
It gave him a legacy, right.
Yeah. It's awesome.
He would have had it anyway, but he wouldn't have enjoyed it as quickly.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and, you know, and it seems like a lot of what I would call more intellectual comics, like Dennis Miller's a good example.
Yeah.
Where he seemed to be in a niche market there for years, now he just seems non-existent. Mm-hmm. You know, and I don't know if that's maybe he's just stopped or doesn't want to do it or whatever, but it seems like there isn't as much of a market for comedy that actually makes you think about something in that sense, you know.
Well, again, I think they're playing to an audience that's been dumbed down. So a lot of it is bodily functions. I mean, that's a lot of the jokes now.
Man, you know, I happened upon this guy. We were watching the other night on Netflix. They put on
Junior Samples.
No. That sounds good though. I'll check it out.
He's good.
No, it's a guy, Western Australian guy, Tim Minchin, and he's been around for a long time. But he is like this virtuosic
Sounds familiar.
piano player, and he does piano comedy. He's like a Victor Borga, but irreverent. You know what I mean? And it was unreal, the stuff he was doing. I mean, but what's interesting too is that concert was played to a non-American audience, and the jokes were probably a bit more sophisticated. Now that concert was from about 10 years ago,
Right.
but still, I think you know where this is going. I think we might be leading the world in the dumbing down process. Is what I'm saying.
Probably.
So we are leaders, no doubt. So so now, are you doing stand up regularly now? Along with
No, not regularly. I do it whenever there's a gig that comes along that interests me. And that's what I'm trying to say is money. So if I get paid a lot of money, I'll go do it. You know,
Right.
I don't have to do it. I don't have to go take, a lot of nightclub gigs or, grind it out. So now I've got things in place where I get a phone call and yes, I'll go entertain your corporate function for a ridiculous amount.
Yeah, that's good.
And that is good for me. And usually those rooms are pretty good, so I don't have to work very hard to entertain them.
Yeah,
I've paid my dues. I've paid my dues.
Chicken wire and all that.
Heckler, I think people that aren't in the business think that that's the thing you got to do. No, not really. You don't really deal with hecklers that much. I mean, it happens, but not that much. It's just bad setups and alcohol. A room that's not set up because a comedy show is a psychological experiment every time you do it. So in order to succeed, the room has to be set up where it will optimize interactivity. So they have to be close to you. They have to pay attention because you've got to take laughs from them. So if they're engaged in a conversation, if they're looking at their phone, if they're near a bar, if they're away from you where they feel comfortable to start a conversation, you're going to lose that battle. So they have to be. That's why you set a room up. Like comedy clubs normally are very tight and packed in, and it seems like you're right up. People in the front always hate it because they're looking right up the comic's nose. But that's a psychological reason you're there, because he can control you a lot easier. Yeah, so it's so much easier to manipulate people, to take laughs. They don't give them to you. That's why we use all this battle terminology like killed, slayed, because it's what you're doing. You have to go get it. They're not going to just give you a laugh for no reason. So you have to earn it.
So you're saying a lot of, like you've done a lot of these where you'll go in and all these distractions over here and it'll be a big room.
Yeah,
like
I did one a couple of years ago that was like that, where the room was narrow, so it was right to left, shallow but right to left, and there was a bar on the right side, and they were 50 yards from me. I mean, it was packed, so it was 400 or 500 people. But that bar caused me a headache because they felt they weren't really part of the show. They were so far away from me, and they didn't have sight lines where they could really see me very well, so they just naturally start talking to one another. So I had to take my microphone, thank God I was wireless, go down there and engage them.
Get in the mix.
Yeah, I got in the mix and started making fun of people, picking on the guy's shirt, her hair, whatever I had to do, which works for a while, but then I lose that side of the room. Yeah. And it was just a disaster,
Right. So was that just whatever this venue was? They just didn't understand how.
Yeah, I had no idea, and that's what you deal with. That's why you hopefully have people in place, an advanced team, so to speak, that goes and says, no, you can't. Here's the way this has to work, or he has to have this in order for this night to work.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. That's
it's a lot of people don't think about that, but I've done it enough to know. Oh God. this is going to be bad.
Like you can smell it walking into the place.
Yeah,
and
just
like,
by the setup. And now that doesn't negate how the crowd is going to be, because they could be idiots or drunk or whatever else you got to deal with, you know. And then they could be fantastic too.
So aside from Chappelle, you know, who's your, say, top 3 right now?
Well, Chappelle would be there. Maybe Bill Burr. Anthony Jeselnik. I love Anthony Jeselnik.
I haven't listened to a lot of him.
I guess he's this generation's Don Rickles. Best way to describe him.
Like the sarcasm bit, you mean? Or?
Yeah, it's very dark.
Okay.
You know, he goes places no one dares go. It's the worst case scenario, every joke. But it's all misdirection. He's the master of misdirection. So it seems like he's about to say something that is endearing or sympathetic, and it turns into the most horrific thing that you've ever heard. And he does it all night long. It's great, though. It's so creative.
Yeah, so,
He's the guy that got in trouble.
Just,
He had a show for a while, and he used to do Shark Party. This is why he got canceled. So because
he got canceled because he was doing a Shark Party.
He did. Because he said, you know, he loves the shark, the efficient, beautiful animal that it is, and we kill, you know, millions of them each year through fishing or culling. And he goes, so whenever a shark gets one of us, I'm going to celebrate it. So whenever there was an attack, you know, he would say, hey, let's have a shark party. Such and such got bit on Riverside Beach. And dancers would come out and lights would go around.
It doesn't have the Jaws music coming in.
Yeah, no, it was like a big party. Well, except one guy got killed in New Zealand and by a great white, which is his favorite shark. And he had a shark party, and they put the guy's picture up.
Oh.
Well, New Zealand doesn't know who he is, but somebody in New Zealand saw it, and a reporter went to his family and showed them the video and said, what do you think of this?
Oh, wow. And I mean, did his family know what he'd been doing?
No, they didn't know who he was. They just know this guy's celebrating their loved one's death with a shark party.
Okay.
So everybody in New Zealand wanted to kill Anthony. So he got all these death threats. They wanted him to apologize. Anyway, it's fun. Yeah. He came here. He came to Lexington, and it was a master's class in misdirection comedy. It was so good. I mean, I just love that guy.
Now, was this at
Comedy Off-Broadway?
Comedy Off-Broadway, yeah.
So good. No.
That's dark.
Yeah, and his audience knows that you're going there to laugh.
Right.
It's macabre. You're supposed to do that.
It's not going to be the Red Skeleton Hour or something.
And it's amazing that it's amazing that he survives in his politically correct culture, but he is so far sold into it that I think it's almost he's built up an immunity. That that's what he does. And I promise you, he will never apologize for a joke.
Well, I mean, isn't that kind of sort of the way that happens with a lot of comics anyway, where they find their thing, and a lot of times it's highly irreverent, and then there aren't any, like Lenny Bruce, right? You know, like there's never any apologies, and this guy's just who he is, and you take it or leave it, and
I was never a Lenny Bruce fan, though. I mean, I get that he's a pioneer, a defender of the First Amendment, and not that I don't appreciate that, but it just seemed like Lenny Bruce was not that good as a comic.
I have a feeling that he's probably, if the film hadn't been done, the Dustin Hoffman movie, and if he wasn't known for breaking the rules early on, that probably we wouldn't be talking about him. In terms of like, oh, that dude was just so funny. He was unreal how funny he was.
No, I think, because of the arrest, for telling jokes. The guy was arrested for telling jokes.
Sure.
So he became a cult hero.
So there's a groundbreaking, if we want to use that term for it,
But I don't think he was that funny, no. I mean, there was a reason he got a couple of shots on television, but he never became, George Carlin.
Right.
Carlin was funny.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and you don't pull out Lenny Bruce tapes and watch them.
Right. Yeah.
Like who's doing that?
Right.
But Carlin's still all over the place, Yeah, that's fascinating. Do you look at, so we talked a little bit how comedy has shifted to whatever degree and in whatever way over the last, say, 30 years. But do you see that, aside from the idiocracy bit, do you see that as just the normal movements of sort of collective, psychology or the whatever you want to call that,
I don't know.
The masses or the zeitgeist of it, or
I don't know if it would be normal or a part of a cycle, because I guess maybe our democracy's too young to know if it is.
Right.
But it feels ominous, that it's just this whole gotcha society that we live in now. Haley and I did a story the other day. We talked about the weather guy up in Rochester, I think, New York, who mistakenly tried to say Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and some other word and came up with not the most offensive slang, but a slang. I mean, it just, and as soon as he said it, he went, I meant Martin Luther King, and it was a genuine mistake, a verbal mistake, not a thought mistake. It was a tongue trip.
Right. Not like a Freudian slip, like I've been thinking about this for 2 years or something.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
No, it's just the way your mouth operates, the mechanics of speech.
Right.
And he tripped, and that came out instead of they fired him.
Oh, no, I didn't hear about this. So
they fired the guy.
They fired the dude. And
I'm not talking, it wasn't like the word that would be, intoned with the nuclear bomb of racism. It was just one of those old slangs that somebody, and it was like, what? They fired the guy? I mean, and he even apologized, I think, as soon as he, I'm sorry, I meant, one of those things.
So he just thought, hey, it was just
what was he supposed? Well, yeah, because obviously he didn't mean anything by it.
Right.
And I think the city's now rallied around the guy, and I think there should be and there will be backlash against the management for having that knee-jerk reaction.
As there should be.
But good gravy. But that's the thing I see is how, in social media that I deal with, people love to be offended. I mean, it's not.
Right.
They are so, I don't know, they're looking for value in their life.
Right.
That they want everything to be a crusade when there isn't one really.
Sure.
So they declare themselves a victim of something, and then they go after people.
Yeah.
And you've got to stop thinking the way you think. I mean, it's one thing to say, leave me alone, and I can appreciate that. But to tell people how to think or how to speak is totalitarian.
It's almost like, it's like a collective victimization.
Yeah.
It's like
It's
just
what
by
we
virtue
value
of
the
breathing,
most.
I can be a victim. Goody. Yeah.
Which I don't think is good for society, but that's the thing we value the most. Your victim status.
Well, and that's part of the reason, why we wanted to start this podcast was because
Your victims?
Well, we definitely are victims. Matter of fact, I've got my easily offended club that I've started.
Oh, good.
And I'd love for you to join as soon as possible. Yeah, I've got my stuff. No, but I don't know how plugged in you are with a lot of the stuff that's been going on the internet with the likes of Jordan Peterson, and a lot of this has come through Joe Rogan's podcast and some other stuff. But anyway, essentially what it is concerning first and foremost just the right to say certain things.
Yeah.
With him, it started in Canada. He's a psychologist, and basically they said, well, we're trying to change where transgendered people can have certain pronouns assigned to them, and you, by law, are compelled to call them these things. Yeah. And so, of course, a lot of the people were saying, okay, it's law. We're going to make it a law. Well, Peterson said, well, I'm sorry, but that's the early road to, getting socialist, getting totalitarian, right? And as a result, he received a huge backlash.
I can imagine.
Yeah. What happened was that, everybody that was against him with that, including the Canadian government, they thought, well, okay, we'll just sort of quash this guy and it'll just go away. Well, everybody rallied to him.
Right.
Because people were so fed up with that stuff.
Right.
And so now he's been going on a book tour and, and it's like, and he's appealing to this huge swath of men, but women too, where, just tired of it, but really he's just talking the stuff that is constitutional anyway. It's not like he's saying, grab your guns, let's go out in the woods. And so, when Aaron and I started talking about that, we're like, boy, this would be really fascinating to do a podcast that's geared not just toward the free speech issue, but toward what is causing culture to allow for that kind of thing. And coming from people that have different backgrounds. Like, for you, coming from comedy, coming from news and all the rest of it, it's like that's a different take, but on what's going on.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Because I certainly think any reasonable person can respect one's identity as to how they want to represent themselves, no matter what. You know, I don't really care. You do what you want, and if you're happy, that's fine. But to overhaul commonalities of society and say, well, now you have to change the way you think, that's a whole nother step that I don't think we've ever taken as a free society. I read an article by, speaking of the transgender issue, a child psychologist who was very concerned with, they got this kid who, some parents, like 9 years old, young boy, and he's dressing up as drag, and he's going to these shows, but it's very sexualized, and she's concerned about him. And she was attacked for saying so. And the example she gave was, she said, 20 years ago, I had a patient whom they brought to me. She wasn't in psychology, she was a pediatrician.
Okay.
And parents brought him to me. He said, our son is dressing up in girls' clothing and he's playing with dolls. She said, well, let's get him to a therapist, see what's going on. And the therapist, after a brief interview, figured out they had just brought home a special needs daughter. And they were giving so much attention to his new sister that he felt neglected. So in his mind, he thought, let me do what she's doing, play with baby dolls, dress up like her. Maybe you'll love me again, is what the kid was thinking. Now, of course they did, but they worked through the issue, kids happy and healthy. She said, now, if I were to do that, the licensed therapist in California would say, well, this is a gender issue. Let's prescribe hormone blockers.
Oh.
And that's what happens. And it's like, what kind of world are we living in now where you're going to change the anatomy and put the child's life in danger? It's kind of
interesting.
Yeah.
So it's almost
crazy.
like the diagnosis is different from what it would have been, say, 20 years ago.
That's her point.
Not based on we have better research now.
Right.
Like
No.
usually it should be. But
It's outside political forces.
Yeah, political forces. Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's creeped out.
Right.
That's really creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so is there a movement now to sort of stop this type of?
No, not really.
No, it's just happening.
Not there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and we're kind of removed from it, I think, you and I, to a degree, but just because of our age. I mean, we grew up in a certain time, and I think probably between the time when we were, say, 20 and now, I think it's probably changed more than the previous amount of years,
I think I deal with a lot of young people who are fantastic humans, and
right.
you try to communicate with them, but they have a lot of anxiety issues. Mm-hmm. I never had anxiety issues, and I think part of the problem is the way they're raised, and you can go in participation trophy and all that, psychology, which I've read psychologists think that's a bad idea.
There's a whole Carlin bit on that, by the way. Just refer to him.
But they are the focal point and center of the parents' universe, right. Which is totally different than the way we were raised. I mean, they are chauffeured around to their functions. Everything stops for the adults to get the kids to wherever it is they need to be to validate their life, not the parents' life. When I was a kid, my parents literally left me at McDonald's once because they forgot about me.
Right.
But I'm normally adjusted because I realized, well, I'm not that important to these people.
And nowadays they'd be arrested if they did.
Well, of course they would. I had to get a ride from the manager to my grandmother's house. It was crazy. And then until they got home, whoa, crap, we've left him. But I appreciate the way I was raised. I think it made me more self-sufficient. I don't have anxiety issues because I'm not trying to figure out why the world doesn't revolve around me.
Right. Or you move out from the parents and you're like, hey, this guy, my boss, actually expects me to do some stuff. He's not wiping my nose every 2 minutes.
Right.
Right. Man, do you remember, there's this old movie, Irreconcilable Differences.
Yeah, I remember.
You remember that?
Yeah.
I never will forget. That came on cable, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know how long ago this is, but Drew Barrymore, right? Mm-hmm. Early Drew Barrymore, and I remember
Shelley Long, right?
It might have been her,
I think so.
And Ryan O'Neal was in it.
Yeah.
I remember Ryan O'Neal was in it. But I remember the premise of it was that she was like 8 or 10 years old, something like that, and she was suing her parents for getting a divorce.
Right.
at that age. And I remember thinking, this is a fantasy movie. And then I remember my dad telling me, oh no, they're serious about that.
Yeah.
You know, but nowadays it's almost like that would probably be kind of, yeah, okay, this can happen pretty easily.
Yeah.
Back then it was like, oh, this is this huge deal and everything. So I think you're right about millennials getting a bad rap on a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because,
it's not their fault.
No, it's not. And, you know, I teach.
I mean, they're horrible people, don't get me wrong. But it's
the
not their
worst.
fault.
But, yeah.
Let me say this, though. In the world as to which we live, where if anybody's dealt with millennials, especially if in the service industry, where, oh, God, here comes a kid, you know, this isn't going to work. What a miracle it is, Chick-fil-A pulls off what they do. Because they somehow find a way to get those kids motivated, not to make mistakes, seem eager, and give you a full 8 hours of hard work. How do they do it?
I've never had bad service there, man.
Nobody has.
Yeah. They could be giving them free nuggets.
I don't know what they're doing. They know how to crank them out, though. It's a life-changing system.
I go there.
I do
mean,
too.
that's the bottom line. Are you going there?
Yeah.
And it must be pretty decent. You know, all the time.
Yeah, I love Chick-fil-A.
Oh, yeah. And the price is right, too. Yeah. Well, yeah, so tell me a little bit about the news.
Okay. What do you want to know?
Talking about comedy was more fun, wasn't it? Yeah, and you might have as much on this with just in terms of how it seems like the news gets this rap all the time about, hey, you know, in order to keep ratings up, we've got to it's got to be like 90% negative, and we might have a human interest story in there every once in a while. It's kind of nice and fluffy. What's your take on that?
Well, I think you're right about that. I mean, I think it's not just a perception, it's the reality. I think they get in a rat race where they feel afraid if someone beats them to a story as opposed to telling the story right. So they watch each other, and it's driven by disaster and tragedy. What happens is, also, they've created so much available content for themselves, where as opposed to doing just one newscast a day, like you used to just do the 6 o'clock news. So you had all day to get it right and to present something. Now you're doing 2 hours in the morning, an hour at noon, 3 hours in the afternoon, and then a half hour at night.
So
That's a lot of content to fill.
Of information.
So the easiest way to fill that is to listen to the scanner and chase car crashes and barn fires and fill up your clock. Problem is, when you do that, now you don't have resources or time to send somebody to go do a story right about something that really means something. Like what would happen in Frankfurt or Washington, how it would affect your life. Because let's be honest, I mean, as tragic as it is for whoever is involved in the crash on New Circle Road, doesn't affect 99% of the people watching that.
No.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Something City Council does might, something what Frankfurt does might, or something to give hope and inspiration with a human interest story might. But instead they focus on that. Problem is that for a while they were doing that and they were getting fantastic ratings with it.
You mean the human interest story?
No,
Or just
the
negative?
death and destruction, the ambulance chasing thing was giving them great ratings. Now I think that's starting to change because of the multi-platforms and ways to get your news service.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to have to change, and you'll see that. You'll start to see more in-depth storytelling.
Just in order to be competitive, you mean?
Yeah,
because
you
there's
gotta,
so many
because
venues now.
Because people are just why? I mean, I'm getting most of my news on my phone. Why would I want to watch something about a car crash? So you better provide content that's going to be compelling.
Right. So do you think that will? I mean, because you have all these news things popping up that aren't brick and mortar agencies the way our 3 local channels are here. So do you think you'll see that with the more fringe news first? Or do you feel like the channels are being compelled to go that way?
No, I think they're being compelled because of competition for survival, yeah.
Okay.
They'll have to do that. And it's starting to happen now.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that seems like, to me, a bit of a good thing.
I mean, you think about it, just in the past 3 years, if somebody were to say 5 years ago to me that my network affiliate would produce shows like Live with Lee and Haley in Hay, Kentucky, I'd have said, what? No way they'd let us do that. All they care about is barn fires and car crashes.
Right.
And now we're doing, entertainment content and community content,
Right.
which we should be doing anyway. And now we just got to make it compelling so we can hold an audience.
Well, and your role is probably a little different than, I mean, because you're not out 3 in the
my
morning.
role's
There's
different
a
than
car crash, right?
Everybody.
Yeah.
It always has been. I've made sure of that. So whenever they would ask me to do a hard news story, I would do it so poorly they would never bring me back to do it again.
Yeah, right.
Or I would somehow try to be funny with that, which is inappropriate.
Right.
They would never let me do it again. So I stayed in my lane when I felt that was an insult to real journalists. I'm not trained for this.
Yeah.
I'm a stand-up comic. Let me go do my thing. Let the people who know what they're doing do theirs.
Yeah, that's a
Don't
good
push
way-
me over there, bro.
Good way of
I
looking at it.
think real journalism is dead to some degree.
Yeah. Now everybody's got an agenda. I just want to know what the facts are. Just tell me the facts. I can decide for myself how I feel about it. But especially on a national level, I mean, it's unbelievable biases.
Yeah.
It's crazy. The best filter, I guess, you could use probably is to try to split your time between MSNBC and Fox News and then make up your own mind. That's probably the best way to go about it. Because if you just watch CNN, they drive me nuts because of the way they pretend to be unbiased. I've never seen such hatchet jobs in my life. So when they do report really integrity-filled pieces, you don't really believe it because the first 3 things before that were hatchet jobs. It just drives me nuts.
Well, and that's a question that I have too. It seems like when I get online, I don't know about you guys, but it seems like I don't know who's believing this stuff anymore. I mean, it seems like there's so much incredulity with people because they're just like, oh, wait, didn't they lie about that last week?
Yeah.
It's the issue with everybody becoming dumber. I think there's a large constituent that believes it.
Yeah.
They
I just
believe
think
everything they
the
hear.
gullibility factor's higher.
Depending on which bias they have now, because they can go. But this is nobody's fault but the journalists' fault. They stopped being journalists and started becoming advocates. And they should never have gotten into that arena. But they can't help themselves because they believe they're so much smarter than the public, and they're not.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like their hands were forced though with, I mean, if you have, an editor-in-chief saying, look, this story needs to have, sort of be colored this way, or we need to have this spin on it. Yeah, I got the facts, but here's what the people want to hear, Mr. Journalist.
Yeah, maybe, but again, that's where you hope integrity shows up.
Right. So.
But I guess it didn't.
Well, and I mean, that's permeated everything, though, right? I mean, radio and TV and in our newspaper. That's who knows where that's going to be in 5 more years.
Yeah.
I mean, the building's already gone, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if that happening had much to do with journalism going the way of the dodo. I think print might just be.
Yeah, I
might
think
be a lot
that was.
tougher having print nowadays.
I think that's just a technology thing.
Yeah. Like the buggy whip's gone. We don't need them anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. Well, so if they're getting back to these sort of human interest stories, do you feel like these years, however long they've been, of negativity or slanted journalism, I'll call it. I hesitate to use like yellow journalism, right? But slanted. Do you feel like that's affected because I mean that affects public opinion and
Sure does.
So I mean, so probably that's been contributing largely to the idiocracy we've been moving into.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're getting facts but they're colored every time with other facts or non-facts.
Yeah. Again, I don't. We've lost a lot of courage. It seems like to stand up to have enough. To have enough self-confidence to hear an opinion I don't agree with. There's a lot of people, a lot of young people, especially on college campuses, they can't do that. They don't know how to do it. And maybe it's because they were the center of their parents' universe, and so now when their belief system is called into question, it blows their circuits, and they have to go to a safe space. But I think it all sort of devolves from that. So I'm just going to get this bit of information. I'm going to expand my horizons. I'm not going to read as much. I'm not going to seek other sources. I'm not going to challenge myself anymore. Matter of fact, you're told not to challenge yourself. You're never to be told that you lost.
Right.
You know, you're going to be given the same trophy that the guy who won was given.
Yeah.
I mean, what good does that do us? Yeah. In order to make our society more comfortable, we've made ourselves losers in a big way.
That was actually part of that Carlin bit.
Oh, was it?
He said, "Little Timmy, you're not a loser. You're the last winner."
Well, there you go.
But yeah, you're right. It's really, I mean, it's really sad to think about that way, and I don't know. It's sometimes one of the things about having a few years is that, like, sometimes I look back and I'm like, is that just my perspective from the age, or is it like that I'm looking at is just that much
I have
off?
this.
It's really hard for me to discern a lot. I mean, in some ways, I'm envious of millennials because, like, hey, I might be critical of some of the things that's going on with your generation, but at least you have just that viewpoint. You didn't have the 20 or 30 or however many years before that to back that up against or push that up against. Which to me, I mean, it's sort of like an ignorance is bliss thing in a lot of ways. Because like we don't even know. It's like I have no idea. Like my wife's parents. I mean, they grew up, basically when Hitler was still in power.
Yeah.
There's no way I could have that
Right.
understanding or that mentality.
Yeah.
How could I?
Right.
Right. So I don't know.
I struggle with that too, because sometimes I don't want to give them too hard of a time, and I think, well, that's just me. I'm getting old and less forgiving, or I'm losing patience.
Don't suffer fools.
But then I talk with adults who work with them more than I do, whether it's in the education system or retail space, and they're quick to remind me, no, it's not you. There is something going on. And I think part of it is technology is like with the smartphone, is the attention span.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's part of the problem with them too. It's hard to communicate with somebody who needs just 3-second sound bites.
Right.
You can't really have a good conversation. And they lose a lot of, and this was a conversation I had with a child psychologist who was talking about all the issues that she deals with a lot of these kids who can't make eye contact. They don't know how to. They have to teach this. They have to teach eye contact. Like, they make kids come in, shake hands, and just simple things that we took for granted, and then either embrace or acknowledge the person next to you, as opposed to living in your virtual reality world.
Right.
They have to teach that. It's gotten so bad. She goes, you don't know how many kids now I have to teach them how to eat solid food. There are parents who have neglected them to the point where all they eat is either baby food or they're still on some sort of liquid diet, and they're coming in at 5, 6, 7 years of age, and she has to teach them how to eat solid food. She goes, you would not believe the numbers of kids I have to do that with.
It's hard for me to relate. I'm not a parent, but why would you keep kids on?
I don't know. But it's a comfort level, because you think about how they must feel neglected too, because their parents are on the phone. They're
right.
As soon as they come home, parents are searching social media or doing whatever they're doing, as opposed to engaging and interacting with their kid. Used to be just television, but that was only in one room. So if you weren't in that room, you had to engage with somebody. Now the television is with you. It's in your pocket.
It's everywhere. Yeah.
Screwing us up.
I don't think I ever.
Don't get me started on podcast.
Yeah, that's right. We know how shady those are. Yeah. No, I've never. I don't think I ever would have come up with that about the solid food not being given to kids thing. Yeah. That's pretty original, actually. that's well, do you, what are your thoughts on, back to the news, what are your thoughts on the effect that has on a lot of the people who are in news? In terms of like, hey, I've been reporting for 20 years and it's been, car crashes and tsunamis and everything else.
There's a burn rate, like with my organization and others I know of as well. It's because if that's all you dealt with all day, I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
Where you're just sent to one tragedy after another and you're not really allowed to use your creative skill set that maybe you think you have and you want to help society and you want to uncover something, you want to use, hopefully you got some sort of journalistic training and not just advocacy training.
Right. In other words, like you're not going in just agenda.
Right. Yeah. So just to continue down the same pathway, I think that burns them out. Because we had a high turnover rate for a while. I mean, not counting anchors, but just reporters. It was just quick turnaround. They would do the contract and move on because it's like, ugh, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and it seems like that happens in some other professions too. I mean, reporting and journalism and television is pretty easy to sort of pinpoint because we see that. It's so much in our face. But it seems like even in like higher education, for instance, it seems like there's been, it's turned more into not so much about the higher education part, but more about agenda-driven things.
Right.
And so I don't know. It seems like something that's permeating everything, but to different degrees.
Yeah, I hate that. And Hey Kentucky, which launched 3 years ago. Matt Jones and I are, and I co-host with him. I've been a co-host with him since the beginning. We disagree on everything politically. We're opposites. But the thing I like about that show is that's one aspect of the show. The rest of the show, we're talking about things in society, whether it's family or jobs. A lot of it is devoted to UK sports, basketball, football.
Yeah.
And then we play games. So Matt and I are buddies. We're friends. We're political enemies, if you want to call us that, because we disagree. But that's such a small part of our human experience. It's great to see that. So when people are rooting for me or they're rooting for Matt or they hate me or they hate Matt, they see it's such a small part of who we are as people. That's the way life should be, is that we can disagree on that one thing, big deal.
Yeah, and who cares?
Why do we have to politicize everything so we can enjoy the rest of our lives and have so much more commonality than we do with just this disagreement about right or left?
Well, I think that to me is another piece that's along with what you were talking about earlier, is being at the kernel of some of the trouble or some of the change. This whole issue of when you have someone who aligns with a cause, whether it's political or not, and I'm not, by the way, going for any partisanship here on the show, but I'm just saying that with a lot of that, it seems like before you even talk to the person, they've said 2 sentences. You get the sense of where they stand on things. And immediately my guard goes up.
Right.
It goes up if I feel like, they're in alignment with me on things, or if they're not.
Yeah.
And the reason it goes up is because I'm like, I've got to edit myself now.
Yeah.
I've got to, because I'm concerned about if I say this, okay,
Right.
let me go to my brain now.
Well,
here are the safe things to say.
Yeah.
And then the issue becomes, okay, to what degree are they going to fit the whole conversation into their cup, which is already full?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And,
exactly what you mean.
And so with those people, I mean, I can start walking toward them after I have a conversation with them, and be like, I'm tired.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to talk to them again.
Here's the reason you feel that way, is because the political environment as to which we live now which is new. I think it's been coming, but now we have arrived, and here we are. If you're the opposite political persuasion than me, I get to dehumanize you.
Right, like it's become
So
very
you're
personal.
not even a person to me anymore.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
just this monster. You're a beast. How can you even exist? Matter of fact, I don't want you to exist. I want to stop your speech, and I want you to go away.
Right.
That's new, I think. I mean, first of all, you never really talked about politics when I was a kid. But if somebody voted for a different guy than you, it's no big deal. You're still buddies. You went to the ball game together, and you shared every other life experience. That's why it's important to at least have some sort of show like Hey Kentucky, where you see this is the way it's supposed to work. It's okay. We're not going to dehumanize one another.
Right.
It's idiotic to do it.
I tell you, that's what's really been surprising to me. And once again, I'm not playing for any sides here, but just in the most recent election, I mean, even now, 2 years after,
Oh, yeah.
you're still hearing all this sort of hate talk, and are there things that you could back that up with and justify, that? Yeah, sure, there's plenty of material, as was there in about every previous administration. You could cherry pick
Sure
stuff.
you could.
So, but for this one, for some reason, it somehow triggered something for people that has continued going. I mean, you know how it was. I mean, after most elections, you might hear a little bit of vitriol for, say, a month or two. And it's like, okay, well, great. You got elected. Do your best. We'll talk to you in 4 years,
Yeah,
see what happens.
I don't have to lay blame at one certain side, because I think if you're doing an honest assessment, you know where the most vitriol comes from. But
Right.
I will say this, there was it's gone beyond the candidates now. So there was a young lady who just lost her life. She was a commentator. She was a writer for the Federalist and was a commentator for Fox News that they would use on occasion. And she lost her life to the H1N1 flu. She was a 26-year-old healthy girl.
Wow.
Just a tragedy that she died like that, The comments on a Twitter announcement of her death by political enemies cheering the fact that she died, hoping that the worms eat her, and saying the most vitriolic, ugly, horrific things about this young girl because of their politics. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, it's like, why do you have to dehumanize somebody? Can't you have any grace, forgiveness, or mercy? Nope, not anymore.
Yeah, that's
Sad.
it is sad, and it's kind of like what we started off with the comedy stuff, in a sense, where nowadays it's a lot of it's so harsh. Not all of it, but it has this harsh quality to it. This hey, I'm not playing around. Hey, I'm really serious.
Well, that's true. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
There are shows out there. The guy who I thought set this. Well, Johnny Carson. First of all, you never knew where he stood.
Yeah, right.
He should be the template as far as those kind of shows. But even a comedy show that has a political slant to it. I was such a fan of Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy was so funny and so brilliant. It never, to me, felt really mean-spirited because he served the joke. It was mainly about the overall audience. Let me find a way to entertain everybody. I'm going to get my shots in, and he took a lot of them, and a lot of them were, I would consider maybe sacred cows for me, but I still laughed because I appreciated the construction of the joke.
Right.
It's really funny. He did a great job. Now we got, I give you the example, Samantha Bee.
I haven't seen her.
It's nothing but vitriol. It's just her being really mean the entire time. Jokes really aren't constructed. It's just insults. But the audience cheers it. It's just real, it's hate speech. Boom, 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 boom. And I guess if you bring that up, they'll go, well, that's what the president does. Okay, well, why are you emulating that? If that's what you feel about it, find a way to elevate things. Don't go down in the gutter, but I'm just not a fan because that's what ends up, and maybe she can be a really funny lady. I just don't see it on that show because she's so desperate to get her point in to belittle the political opposition. It's just not fun to watch.
See, I don't enjoy that sort of thing either. And I would venture to say that even people that are, grew up in the last 20 years probably don't enjoy it either, but they have somebody said, hey, this is the show to watch. Because it's almost like this thing nowadays, there's so much stuff thrown in our face. And it's like, here, we're a company, let's say a TV studio, and we put a lot of money into promoting the show. And so, hey, everybody, this is the show to watch. Here's a little YouTube ad. Here you see it on this show and so on. Then you go watch it and you're like, oh, this show's crap. I don't like this show.
Yeah.
But everybody else is saying this is the show.
Well, it's also part of virtue signaling, too. So I'm going to affiliate myself through no real effort of my own just to say, I think this is wonderful, so now I must be wonderful. Right. So I'm going to signal my virtue. Anthony Jeselnik points out that that's what irritates him about thoughts and prayers hashtag. When you put that up there, it doesn't even affect you, but all of a sudden here comes thoughts and prayers. He goes, what you're really saying is, look at me. Hey, I know this thing's happening, but I need you to look at me right now. Right. And that's kind of what you see with a lot of these television shows.
Sure, yeah.
Irritates me.
Yeah, there is a lot of look at me. I mean, yeah. There's always been look at me, but now it seems like there's a whole lot of look at me.
Yeah, and a lot of it's protected by anonymity, too. So a lot of people, a lot braver than they really are.
Yeah, that's creepy. That's real creepy. Yeah, do you feel that, what do you feel is the next thing that's going to happen with it, though? I mean, you talked about how the stations are going to be forced to go into better journalism or better storytelling.
Yeah, I think in order to survive, you have to be more compelling. And
so you think it'll go back to, hey, these stories are really good now, and not only that, but we've got like 100 venues.
I hope they are.
From.
Yeah, I don't know that it will. I hope they are. I mean, I'm sure there was going to be a race for the lowest common denominator because it's what humans are attracted to for the most part. I will say this, though, I think there's going to be a niche market about political incorrectness and truth-telling. Because I don't see how, with the way comedy is now, in the way everybody's looking for you to offend them somehow, and then there's going to be a protest, and people don't want you to work anymore. They want you silenced, all that. I think the majority of people who are still left out there are going to demand more from people like Anthony Jeselnik, Bill Burr, the Joe Rogan podcast. They're going to want to hear more of that, actually, because it's so hard to come by. Because now I have to have everything filtered through these thought police. I can't even enjoy it. And that changes. The rules change all the time as to who is the sacred cow and who you can make fun of and who you can't. So I don't even want to be a member of that club. I don't care. So I think people are just going to have to go find those brave vanguards that will stand up and just tell you the truth no matter what the circumstance or consequence.
Oh, Aaron, what does it seem like to you?
I don't know. I wonder what the end game is going to be, if there's just going to be a pushback and it'll all balance back out, or if it'll come to a head and we'll end up in another Nazi Germany or Stalinist Russia or a civil war or what. It's hard to say.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think, there's still a lot of good old American values in our DNA.
I think there's that, and I think one thing about having so much technology now is that probably when things were coming to a head in, say, Mao's China or Stalinist Russia, there weren't that many people going, hey, don't you remember when this was doing this before? Hey, look at the literature. Remember when this happened? There probably weren't that many people because not that many people were that educated. They didn't know that, these are the early signs of this happening. Now, because of higher education, I use that term loosely, and, because of the internet and so on, you have all these people that are like, no, we've studied this. We see this. This is where stuff starts breaking down. And if you let it keep riding another 20 years or so, hey, it's going to be irreversible. We don't know if we'll be able to come back. And so I think if there is any advantage to the technology and the,
information
something's
age.
buzzing every 2 seconds and all that might be.
I think the majority is also silent. I think most of society does not engage in the kind of that kind of discussion. It's mostly kids in their 20s and 30s and blasting on Twitter and Facebook and what have
See, that's what's weird too. It does seem like, more millennials or just people younger than me are more ready to get into conversations like these than people our age. I don't know if have you noticed that? I don't. Maybe we're just tired, and it's like.
Well, that may be part of it, but there's more at stake for us.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose your career, your reputation, your job.
True. Yeah.
If I'm just starting out, what do I got to lose?
Yeah, that's true.
It's going to piss you off. Big deal.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
As soon as this is over, I'm going back to my mom's basement. I'm still on their insurance. I don't have anything to lose by engaging, by my opinion being out there, and then losing whatever it is that people are going to attack me with.
Yeah, so it's more risk.
A lot more risk
yeah.
for older folks.
That's true.
You're just too busy. I mean, people have.
And that's the other thing. Yeah, I think that's true too.
Yeah.
My work's a full-time job, and
Yeah.
I don't care.
That's right.
As much. Yeah.
Yeah, life goes on. I don't have time to go protest.
I don't have Twitter. I don't have
Yeah.
time to make signs.
Yeah,
It is kind of odd how, a lot of the people you see protesting a lot are jobless.
of course
I
they
have
are.
noticed. Those two things seem to go hand in hand. It's a miracle that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And other people who are like, I work 80 hours a week. I never see them on the lines at all.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. So do you listen to or get into any sort of I don't know, political philosophical commentary online or otherwise, or is it just pretty much comedy and news for you all the way?
No, I try to get a full picture from all sides actually. But I would say that, sort of the go-to organization for me a lot of times is the Federalist. I like the way they write. I like the way they think for the most part. But I follow so many people on Twitter that I disagree with. I still want to know why they think that way, and it may sharpen my argument too. But I follow quite a few people, and then I just follow people that I think amuse me, or or keep me in touch with things I care about.
Well, I think that's so good, and I think that a lot of times this sort of clear division that we have between two sides. I mean, we know there are a few other sides that never come to the fore, right? But the clear division that we have with the two sides, it's sort of, maybe it's our, tribal instincts or something, but it's like, no, I'm totally over here.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think you're forced over there eventually because, you'd like to have a more nuanced position. So you kind of go, well, they got a point, they got a point. And meanwhile, while you're being nuanced and thinking about this and that, these folks on the other side have dehumanized you to the point where they want blood from you. So you have no choice but, well, okay, I guess I'm all in over here. I mean, that's why a lot of people that never vote for Trump ended up voting for that guy. It's because they were dehumanized by the opposition. They felt like, what do you mean? I can't have just a basic position if I respect my country's own sovereignty. I can't even feel that way without you calling me a racist, or you got all these other names for me that you want to make me feel as if I'm just this horrible person.
So you're saying it's like a partial choice to go to one side and then you're pushed the rest of the way?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Even though you think, well, that's horrific. I would never talk to people like that the way this guy's talking to people. You end up over there because, well, they just beat the snot out of you.
Yeah.
Because you even entertain one idea. And it may be true the other way. I would assume so. That they feel, well, I got to go over here because look at this one issue. You've pushed me there.
So do you get, because you're higher profile in this town especially, do you get a lot of people calling in saying, well, I don't agree with Lee?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you get a lot of that.
A lot of it.
Yeah, a lot of it. So, that's particularly, I mean, you're probably getting like 20 times that from what I'm getting or more, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So probably that's a super hot button in a sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. Well, it may not even be political. It just may be about some societal issue.
Right.
A lot of times it's something innocuous I didn't even think about. I just said a joke or something because a lot of times when I'm looking for controversy, I don't find it. Maybe because I've thought that out more clearly and I've positioned myself to where it's sort of, I don't know, maybe impenetrable. But I've said things and then I get a stack of emails and the phones light up on the desk. People want me fired or they never want to see me again. Whatever it may be. Yeah, I deal with that all the time.
Now, was this the reason that you wrote Anchor Reeducation?
No, the reason I wrote Anchor Reeducation was because there was a little bit, Haley was getting a lot of complaints about talking too fast. So that's a real thing.
Right.
The other was, at the time, management was always trying to get us to do certain things that intuitively always felt wrong to me. You know, because I think of it from a show business standpoint. I never think of it from news. And these guys that come in, these consultants that want to tell you how to look and
Nielsen
talk.
ratings. What the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, ratings are important. I think they are, but I think you find that
You
people
get more with laughs.
Well, that's just not just that. I mean, I think they're more attracted to authenticity.
Right.
Like that guy, I like that guy because he's real.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like you can trust that guy because he's being himself. He doesn't care.
Cardboard cutout or
Right.
something.
As opposed to something that's manufactured. And so I'm always fighting against that.
So I'm going to break the fourth wall here. So for our audience who hasn't seen Anchor Reeducation, that was a video that we put together where I play a really nasty Nazi, and Lee and Haley have to go back to re-education camp to be anchors again, and I help them out a little bit. Here it is, back in just a second.
Welcome to the Anchor Re-Education Camp. Today you will learn that you are not special, but a homogenized artificial version of what we believe a Midwestern corn-fed stay-at-home wife wants to see. Remember, they just want to see perfect teeth and a vapid, soulless response to real human suffering. Now here is your instructor, Arnold Tutt.
Achtung! I can see why the people hate you.
I can see why his mother abandoned him.
That's right.
So you're the one who thinks he's funny. Ah!
Oh, why me?
Haley Harmon. You talk too fast. And there are many other things that we need to talk about. We will begin now. It says here that old people cannot follow you. And there are many other people who wish you to slow down. Lee Cruse, I have strategically placed gumballs next to your chair. You will pick them up and place them in Haley's mouth one by one. And this will slow you down.
How many do I put in?
As many as it takes.
Seriously? Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, 7. You will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. Do it.
With liberty and justice for all.
That was perfect. This also says, Miss Harmon, that your accent is too thick. People cannot understand you. We will utilize electricity, a modern marvel. This will train you. I will now show you a series of images. You tell me what you see. Look here.
Pillars.
You are on very thin ice. Try again.
Pillars.
Wrong.
What? No.
Now your turn, Lee Cruse. I've been waiting a long time for this. It says here. It says many, many things here. They all essentially say you're a shrine. I will show you a series of images now. You look at them, and your task is to be nice. See the conflict? It's tearing you apart, isn't it?
It's a greeter at P.F. Chang's.
9! We will try again. Here is another image. What do you see? Be nice, Mr. Cruse. Good, good. Nice. Nice.
That's a monkey humping a football.
Ah! Not supposed to like it. Ah, it appears I have a personal phone call. You'll wait here. Hey, baby. Yeah, be there at 5. Yeah, sure, we can watch The Notebook again tonight. You got it. Where did they go? When we were having such a good time.
And we're back.
Yeah.
So yeah. So you get tons and tons of hate mail, but I bet you get a lot of people calling in saying, "Hey, Lee, we really appreciate it."
Yes, if I run into people in public, yeah, most of the time they're very nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Nobody's like chasing you down.
No,
I heard what you said on the.
No, again, you find that the people who want to say nasty things are cowards in public. They never come up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
Yeah, the Facebook
Yeah.
warrior.
Yeah, the keyboard warrior, the outrage brigade, as I call them. I never really deal with those people in public, but most people are very nice.
Yeah.
And I think most people that enjoy a show, I know how I am. First of all, if I'm offended, I mentioned Samantha Bee. I've never written a letter about Samantha Bee. I really don't want Samantha Bee to get fired. If she's successful, God bless her. You know, good for her. She's found an audience, you know, being angry, and people can be angry with her, and the pitchforks and the torches, and they go burn whatever they want to burn. Good for her. I'm not going to interfere with that. Mm-hmm. But on the same token, too, I've never written a letter to thank Jon Stewart or David Letterman or Johnny Carson for making me laugh either.
It's because you're working.
I'm busy.
Just like the people on protest
That's right.
lines.
So I assume the people that do enjoy our show are just too busy to, but they do. When they do, God bless them, because it makes you feel great when they say nice things.
Yeah.
You know?
They tune in. They take the time out.
Because you don't know. Sometimes you don't know. You think, well, I like that. I hope somebody else did.
I think that happens a lot. You know, where you'll watch something and you'll say, "Oh, wow, that was a great piece," mm-hmm. and then, but you know, you're watching it at home and you're like, "I wonder how many other people saw that."
Yeah.
Right, and you just don't know. Even living in a fairly small city like Lexington, it's comparatively right, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just don't know who's going to come up and talk to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you don't. And I will say, like, I got it a lot easier than, say, Haley does.
Oh, did she catch more hell, or?
Well, I just think she has to be cognizant of a creep factor.
Oh.
You know, what's the odds of some big lady coming up and putting a smooch on me? As much as I want her to. Yes. And I'm hoping she does at some point. But, you know, I think Haley always is like, oh, God, what's this guy? You know, what's he really, you know, is he nice? You know.
Yeah.
And maybe
I love your news. What's your number?
Yeah. Well, she has gotten stuff like some guy said, I'm in a real bad space, and I just want you to know how much I appreciate watching you every morning. She was doing the morning show then.
Oh, that's cool.
And the thing that could get me through it, though, is if you could send me a photo of your feet.
Oh, my God.
That's not cool.
Yeah.
The first part was cool.
Right.
But
So we sent him a picture of my feet. There you go, buddy.
I should have gotten some of those Bilbo Baggins deals.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did he write back and say, thank you so much?
No,
I love these feet.
No, just ignore that guy. You know. It's crazy.
Yeah, so tell people a little bit, because some people who maybe be tuned in who are Lexingtonians or they know your show, they may not know that your wife Elizabeth has a business here in town.
She's very successful, hugely successful.
Hugely successful. And what does she do?
She's a wrestler, and
I
she's
saw her.
professional.
Speaking of feet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What a move! The full and half Nelson is unbelievable.
Yeah, the suplex, right?
She's a fashion icon. She owns Miss Priss, which attracts girls from all around the country, literally, to buy prom pageant gowns, that kind of thing. And she built that business about 15 years ago and has just killed it.
Yeah.
You know, nuts.
So it's basically like girls who are getting married.
Not really married.
Not really married.
No,
Is it
prom or pageant.
prom
So
and
if they're in,
so I don't think I understood that before. So that's more of a niche. She doesn't do like wedding dresses that much. It's just
there's occasionally somebody will come buy a gown and they'll use it for the wedding, but that's not the intention.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I ever understood. So basically, prom's in.
Yeah.
She gets flooded
I
with.
think like her Instagram account, 70,000 followers.
Lord. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. And
It's insane.
so it's girls going on there.
Yeah.
Checking out, going, oh look.
Oh
this
yeah,
dress.
because she posts pictures every day, and so they just love the gowns or whatever photo she's posted.
Now, are these all gowns that she makes herself?
No,
or-
she's a retail store, so she's selling gowns vis-a-vis either like Sherry Hill is a gown maker, who is actually a real person. Sherry's a real person, by the way. Well, because you see a name like Nike, and you go, who's it? But there's a guy named Phil Knight, but Sherry's a real person and loves Elizabeth and works. They work quite a bit together. But no, there's a lot of other brands out there too that you can buy at her store that she has to go, to market and try to guess what the trends are.
Yeah,
and that
she
kind
gets
of
all
thing.
those babies together based on current trends.
Yeah, what she, it's a lot of projection. What she thinks will fly, you never know.
Gotcha, so
Because you
it's-
could be stuck with
So
inventory.
it's like playing the market.
Right.
Yeah,
But she's pretty
she's
good.
speculating.
Yeah, but
That's
she's good at it. She's the
Well, she's been doing it 15 years. She ought to have
at least, yeah.
Yeah, a little,
So-
some kind of finger on the pulse of it. So basically, I guess this is a seasonal deal then. So prom, like when it's prom time, I guess that's her.
Yeah,
She
right
gets
now,
flooded.
because right now it's prom time. So here we are in January, late January.
Mm-hmm.
So to give you a perspective, because most guys don't know, it gives me anxiety to think about it. But like on a Saturday, she has 35 dressing rooms, okay?
Wow.
30 employees. It's a 45-minute wait to get a dressing room because the influx of women in there desperate to get the perfect prom gown. It's like that from sort of late December until about April.
Wow, man.
Nuts.
That sounds. I didn't realize it was on that scale. I mean, I knew she.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I mean, it's great though.
Oh yeah, it's great business, but it creates so much anxiety, and eventually, you get customers that get angry because they don't feel like they're getting the type of service that they want because they're spending quite a bit of money for these things.
Hey man, I mean, about 20-30% of my wedding
Oh, yeah,
couples.
I bet.
So
Oh,
believe me,
I bet.
I know.
Yeah.
I know the.
Yeah. The demand for your attention.
Yeah,
Right,
the young girl who has to have her dress just right.
Oh, yeah.
That character,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know that one pretty well, and it can get frightening.
Yeah.
I've been frightened many times actually. It's scary.
Yeah.
Does she have a website?
MissPrissGowns.com.
Yeah, so
You go
anybody
there.
watching,
Or you just go to Miss Priss on Instagram
they
or Facebook. Or
they can say Miss Priss, Elizabeth.
Well, you can't. If you just Google Miss Priss, you get some weird stuff.
Okay.
So you got to go to Miss Priss
You hear
Gowns.
that, kids at home?
Yeah.
That's right. So
So just go to the
Miss Priss-
Instagram. Just go to Miss
Instagram,
Priss Gowns, I think is what it is.
Elizabeth Cruse.
Yeah, see
Miss
you
Priss
there.
Gowns.
Thanks
Make
for the plug. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah. Hopefully she'll get some even more business out of it.
Yeah.
So, besides your comedy and TV shows, I mean, we haven't hung out a whole lot. We hung out a little bit.
Yeah.
But, but what else are you into?
Well, I love Disney.
You
I
mean,
love
like
going to Disney. Yeah,
going
I love
to the theme
it.
park.
Yeah, I love-
not sitting
I
at
love
home
the-
watching Fantasia, right?
Oh, but I like the Disney movies, Pixar movies. I love those.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a golfer. I love playing golf, smoking cigars, drinking old fashions.
Oh, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, that's.
Right up my alley.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I ever told you this, but his older brother. Well, why don't you tell him? You tell him.
Yeah, so my older brother Micah has a business called Bourbonware. You can get their bourbonware.com, and they do a large variety of barware, like leather covered.
Oh, yeah. I love that stuff, yeah.
Decanters and flasks and shot glasses and so on and so forth. And he sells everything at the various distilleries and a couple other.
Why doesn't he sponsor this podcast and we could be sipping on something right now?
We actually talked about that because he does have a little office space at his shop that we could shoot at. So
Yeah, sounds like the perfect sponsor.
Well, and it was interesting today because it was touch and go because his wife Emily, she was actually due with their second baby on the 18th, but baby decided to come a little early.
Really? Okay.
And so Aaron was actually over there today. So
Wearing a catcher's mask and ready for the baby to some tongs.
Bring it on in. Come on.
Say about his wing.
Yeah, I waited until after it
Yeah.
she showed up to visit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a great business, and I mean, it's really high end.
Yeah, it's doing
Handcrafted.
Sounds like I'd love that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, it's really, really good stuff. Yeah.
And then his wife owns Proud Mary down on the river.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Great
Yeah.
barbecue joint.
Yeah.
I've been there. My brother had a birthday party there, I think.
They do a lot of big parties
Yeah.
down there, don't they?
Yeah.
Down there in the bottom, where they got the floor you can look down. Didn't they have fish down on the floor at one time or something like that?
I forget what that was before, because that facility's been there for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah, it was
Like in the
was it Riptide?
70s. Yeah, Riptides
Riptides,
before
that
that.
was
But
before
then,
that,
even before that, it was something
Yeah.
like it was a disco, like in the
Right.
70s. That's
Yeah.
why they had the fish on the floor and the whole thing.
Well, I mean, you walk in and it has that.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like this was built in the last 30 years
yeah.
feeling to it.
Yeah.
But and I think they're just open in the seasons, right?
Yeah, they
When
usually
it's-
shut down around Thanksgiving and then open back up on Fat Tuesday.
Yeah.
Shut down.
Yeah, it's some
usually
good stuff.
over the winter.
So, yeah, we'll have to hook you up with some bourbonware, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Let me know.
and fun stuff.
Talk
I
about.
was just about being a shepherd back in the.
Oh yeah. Apparently there was you remember Richard Lewis, the comic Richard Lewis?
Oh yeah.
There, when he was a kid, I remember him telling this story, and he's been, is he still alive or did he die? I think he's still alive. He was
so.
desperate to find video of when he was a kid, like 16, 17, Alan Funt of Candid Camera came to his school. He didn't know, obviously, because it's Candid Camera. And they punked him, to use today's terminology, at the guidance counselor. And so they bring him in and they tell him, they have him take a test, and they said, this is what you got it, because here's what you're evaluated on, and your answers have provided your career path. And they said, you have to be a shepherd. And they said, you have no choice. This is what, and you know how.
And he turned into a comic and it
Yeah,
went far
right.
off.
He's neurotic, and and he's like he's throwing a fit. Well, I don't want to be a shepherd. Well, that's what you got to do. I would love to have seen that. That's great.
That's a show that they really should put on DVD if they haven't somewhere, and I don't know about it.
Sometimes you can find them on YouTube.
Right, they'll put pieces on there, but
Yeah.
they need the whole box set. The Alan Funt special.
When I was a kid, I remember the one where they just rearranged a restroom. Like
Right.
people would walk in and they had cots where guys were just resting. And people would walk around and and everybody laughed. They thought it was hilarious for some reason. But that was the extent of the gag. I just remember that leaving an impression with me when I was a kid.
The one that sticks with me is the guy that's got a long trench coat on, and he's at it's like a New York corner or something, and he's got an armful of groceries, and he's goes up to it's like this old lady, 70 or something, and he looks over and goes, I need to get my apartment. Can you get my keys? And she reaches into his pocket, and you just see her face go. That one stuck with me,
Yeah.
And then the guy's smiling and all that. And it cuts away to something else before it gets too risque for 60s and 70s TV. So, hey, I did want to put on. I got a couple of pictures of Lee and Elizabeth from back when they did. I know you're not going to believe it. Dancing with the Lexington Stars. Lee and Elizabeth were kind enough to do our local fundraiser that we do here at Arthur Murray Dance Studio in Lexington. We've been doing it for many years now, but with this year, I think this may have been the second. It was first, second, third year, something like that.
I think it was the first year that we
Was it
did
their first?
I think it was.
Yeah, it was really early on because we're like in number 9 or 10.
It was the first year because what did we get, second or third? And Nicole Pence,
Right.
the vice president's niece, by the way.
Right.
That's true. She is the vice president's niece.
Well, I think I knew that.
Yeah.
But
At the time, her uncle was the congressman from Indiana, Mike Pence, but now he's our vice president.
scary.
There you go.
Very
Yeah. But she won.
Yeah. They were afraid not to give it to her.
Yeah.
She's related to Pence.
Right. What are you
That's
going
right.
to do?
But anyway, here's some pictures from Lee and Elizabeth. Yeah, from Dancing with the Lights and Stars when we had it. Now, Dancing with the Lights and Stars was sponsored not only by Arthur Murray Dance Studio, but also the Rotary Club, and it benefited Surgery on Sundays, which is a great organization that helps people have surgery who are without insurance or
They've fallen through the cracks.
yeah, they've fallen
mobility
through
to
our
pay.
insurance
Right.
machine or whatever. And so they were kind enough to do that. Here's some pictures from that time. Oh, look at that picture of them standing there, getting ready to go on.
Look at that shirt.
That
I'm
shirt
wearing.
is the most awesome shirt I've ever seen.
More of a blouse, really.
Is that
as well.
Is
It
that why
was
Elizabeth
sort
was
of-
trying to take that off you?
Yeah, maybe.
That's right.
Some kind of see-through deal.
Yeah.
Made for Chris Helmsworth, not me. Looked like sausage casing when I wore
No,
it.
it fits you perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very metro.
Yeah. You're doing your best Jason Momoa thing before he was big.
Yeah.
That's
That's right, before he was big.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know if he was ever small.
Yeah, he's a big guy, seems like.
Yeah, he's like my size, man. He's a big dude. And isn't he like Hawaiian? Is that right? Samoan, Hawaiian. I know he's got all the tats, the
Right.
the Maori
Samoan, yeah, whatever that
type
Samoan
tats.
thing.
Samoan. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah, it seems like it.
I know there's that one show that he's.
That doesn't mean anything anymore. There's guys from Norway got those tats.
So toward the end of these shows, we're always trying to keep it on a light note toward the end.
Yeah.
Have you read anything good?
No.
Do you read very much?
No.
You don't? What's your favorite book you've ever read?
Favorite book?
Yeah.
I've ever read? Oh, I don't know. Probably something from Tolstoy.
Tolstoy, really?
Yeah.
Huh, I guess I wouldn't have pegged that.
Yeah.
So why Tolstoy? I mean, the way you said it, it sounded like you'd read more than just one thing. From
Right, that's
Tolstoy.
true.
Okay,
Right, yeah.
okay.
No, I'm sorry. I meant Toll House. Yeah, it was the
Wait,
package.
no, that's a cookie company.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I meant. It was the package, and I knew it was going to be delicious. That's my
Oh,
fault.
Tolstoy, that's,
Read the
Yeah.
ingredients.
those are
Yeah. That's all I had time to read.
5,000 carbs.
Yeah.
In the vein of comedy, what is your opinion on South Park?
It's okay. It never really clicked with me. I like Family Guy. I always liked that show. South Park, I admired some of the bravado and the chances they took. I got a little irritated with them, though, when they got blowback and then they cowered when they did the Muhammad episode,
I didn't see that. I heard about it.
Well, nobody saw it. I think they pulled it. And I think maybe, because they got death threats and all that, and I don't know why. I don't know if and I shouldn't accuse Trey and what's the guy's name? Matt of being cowards, because I don't know. Maybe they wanted to run it. But it just kind of irked me the wrong way. Like, if you're going to hit everybody, hit everybody. Don't all of a sudden have a sacred cow and act like you're, But
Well,
and that may have been the network, too.
Team
I don't know.
America didn't seem to pull any punches.
No, and they've been pretty good about it. But I think they're funny. Don't get me wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, somebody's got to be watching it.
Yeah.
They've been around long enough.
The thing is, when you do stand up, it's hard to criticize other people that are taking chances, because you know what it's like to be on that stage and, have to go through it. And so you're not so quick to judge people and say they're not funny it's just tough. It's a tough go.
Yeah.
Create laughs out of thin air.
Is it, and maybe you've never done this, but what is it like to bomb a show?
Well, it's horrible.
I mean, what is...
Horrible. I mean, there's no better feeling when it's going great.
Right.
But that's, it's been a while since because I'm at the stage where I can manage it pretty well. So it's not going to happen. I hope to God it's not going to happen the way, it did early on, where you have to learn. You got a lot of learning curves. And the main thing you got to control is your own fear. They sense that, they tighten up. So if they don't feel you're in control, they get anxiety, and the laughs aren't going to come as easy. But if you look like nothing bothers you, they'll loosen up and they'll come along for the ride. And you have to learn how to sell that. And the real truth is, you have to believe it. You can't pretend, because they can sense that too. We work with open micers quite a bit. Me and my buddy Scott Wilson, who I think, and we try to. You just tell them stage time. Because if you're funny at home, you have the potential to be a comic. But do you have the cojones to stand up there and die 1,000 deaths and face that humiliation? And usually the way it cycles is the first time everybody does pretty good because they invite their family and friends and people are cheering for them. And they're
Mom said I was great.
Yeah. Well, my favorite thing is to watch them the second time when now nobody's there to root them on and it's just strangers and then the panic sets in after the first joke bombs or doesn't hit.
How do you go about reading a crowd? Do you have like jokes that you use, a set of jokes?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can just get a sense of, where they are. And that's, again, all of that takes time, hours and hours and hours of being on stage and knowing how to bring the energy level up or to drop it down to meet them. Sometimes I see guys make this mistake. They'll hit the stage and they get a little panicked, so they get louder. They get more demonstrative. And that just pushes the audience away even further, as opposed to softening and letting the jokes just sit there and be comfortable in the silence. A lot of guys, it takes a while to learn that. Yeah. Where you just sit there and look at them and let them have a nervous laughter, but let them more importantly see this isn't bothering you at all.
I agree with you. Chappelle is probably top of the list for me as well.
Yeah.
But he does that kind of thing, just kind of lets
he doesn't care.
Settle in and
doesn't care. Yeah.
Well, that's interesting that happened, like the increase in volume you're talking about. When people are like as if getting louder would make it funny all of a sudden or something, but people do that when they're debating too. Yeah. If somebody's not tracking their point or hating them for their point, and then all of a sudden they start getting louder as if
shut them down.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's the same thing with all the kids that protest speakers on campus. They just come in and yell.
Yeah.
They'll just chant whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, not realizing it's more of a turnoff than that's interesting that happens.
Yeah, James Gregory is the guy who taught me the technique of, this was early on in my career, is if you get a table that's talkative and they're being chatty and it's disruptive, is that he taught me this, first move I do is to soften, get quiet. And if they hear themselves 9 out of 10 times, they'll shut up. If that doesn't work, then you step towards them and you stand in their vicinity and talk, even make eye contact. And if they don't shut up, then you go at them. So you got 1, 2, 3 steps. That's your protocols to go through. Okay, now I'm going to have to talk to you because you're ruining it for everybody else. You
know who was awesome at that was Stephen Wright.
Oh yeah.
You remember that? I mean, how he would get so quiet and everybody would go, and you could tell he was purposely being off rhythm.
Yeah.
Everybody's like going, da 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 da.
So he's like a jazz artist.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
The thing that amazes me about Stephen Wright, and I still don't quite comprehend today, is how he remembers his act. So if I do 45 minutes to an hour, it's a sequence. So once I know the first 2 words of that bit, I can almost shut off and my mouth will take over for the next 3 minutes. So I got a trigger mechanism, right?
Right.
It's like this begins the story. And it's like singing a song. Once you hear the first words and here comes the chorus, you know it.
Right.
And you can act it out. It's important to try to live in the moment, though, not just, disconnect. But his non sequiturs, those one-liners he does, how in the world, especially if he's doing 2 shows a night, in the daily grind of a tour, how does he know he didn't do that joke already? Because they're not attached. They're just individual thoughts. It's and I guess he's got a method. I'm sure he does. But to me, I would be terrified that I've just repeated that joke, in the first 20 minutes before I'm wrapping up. It's how are you doing that,
or you
man?
come in at
right.
15 minutes where you should be at 45 minutes or whatever. Yeah.
But I guess he's got a method.
How much of it is improv?
For most guys, myself included, maybe 5%.
Okay, it's pretty low.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you have to keep a slight margin in there because just like any theater, if you have it so structured that, somebody dropped a chair and made a loud noise and now I'm off my thing, Well,
I'm always looking for found humor too. Is there something I can make fun of, the venue or the guys in front? I'm looking for that, but I'm not going to force it if it's not there. But I also construct through transitions and stuff where I may ask a question and I can predict the response 9 out of 10 times. But either way, I'll build something on that, just through their response, and we'll go.
And you're right, though. I mean, I think some of it might be just how certain people are wired too, in terms of how they deliver. Even if they've memorized an act totally, like, I mean, you know me, I go back to Dangerfield all the time just because those are just timeless deals. But his were non sequiturs
Yeah,
most of the time.
it's very similar.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's just like, yada, 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 here's this, here's this, here's this. And you're like, man, that's...
I mean, now that I think about it, it's probably in sequence. I'm sure that it's repeated the exact same way every night. You know?
Yeah, it's just, it's fascinating. Well, and it's fascinating how probably one person could do that way, be super funny. Another person does it not so much. Like it's like a certain brand of the humor that really speaks.
It is. It's a lot of charisma and confidence on stage,
Well, or like, could you imagine anybody else doing Red Fox's jokes? I mean, he had that thing, or Carson, I mean, same. So I don't know. There's something about the persona wrapped in the material that's just so.
Well, those guys
strange.
at the top of their game too, like Johnny Carson or Jack Benny, could, and to some degree, Bob Newhart could maximize. Tim Allen does it a little bit now, I guess you'd say. Silence.
Yeah.
They don't have to say anything, and they're getting laughs because their character. It's so well established. You almost know what they're thinking, and they just sit there as a reaction, and it's hilarious.
Right.
Their facial expressions are just...
That's all they got to do.
Yeah, right. Well, that's the thing. When you have a comic, you just look at them and they're funny anyway. Like, I tell you, there's something about Lewis Black. I could just look at him. There's something about him that's just like,
Right.
this guy looks so
Angry
uptight.
and upset. He's upset about
this
something.
guy is really mad about something.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap it up, and we're going to end with another video that we aired on Channel 18 on the Lee and Haley show.
Became a promo.
Became a promo. Well, actually, this is Wedding Crashers.
Oh, this is what? Oh, I'm sorry.
Wedding Crashers.
Oh, so this was not a promo.
Yeah, we might air both of them.
Okay.
Yeah, but I knew the other one was still being aired, so I wasn't sure about.
No, well, I don't know what the schedule is with that one, but yeah.
Okay.
The Wedding Crashers was fun.
Yeah, we're definitely doing Wedding Crashers, and this happened around the time of the royal wedding, and we staged it here at the local castle venue in Lexington. And I'm the British butler keeping Lee and Haley out. Two rednecks who are bound and determined to get into the castle to attend the wedding. And right after that, we might go ahead and try to play the what we were calling the Thanos piece, although I don't think anybody thinks of it as Thanos.
No, we just call it boredom.
Call it boredom, yeah. So you'll see me really making you bored.
Yeah.
And you'll see Lee just hit me upside the head with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being with us, you guys. Thank you for attending our inaugural episode of Sebastian and Sierp. Once again, thanks to Lee Cruse for coming by and spending the time with us. And we hope to see a lot more of him. We'll probably have him on the show again if he decides this experience wasn't too traumatic. And who knows who we'll have next time, but it'll be coming right around the bend on Sebastian and Sierp. And we're out.
All right, buddy.
Guess I could hold that for a couple more minutes.
What is this? Like the county courthouse?
It's even nicer than that.
And I'm proud to be an American. For at least I know I'm free.
I am so excited we are here for the wedding.
We ain't seen nothing like this ever.
This is crazy.
Fantastic.
We don't do big homes like this.
This is a private party. You can't be here.
Let's do a selfie real quick.
Let's do it. You
English
love this.
butler.
You're gonna
English
love this.
not the
Exactly.
Stop
Hey,
that at once. Stop that at once. This is a private engagement. There is no wedding. There is no party for you. You do not belong
Yeah, we do.
Unless your name is on the list.
It is on the list. My cousin Megan's getting married.
If your cousin is
Megan.
getting married, then your name must be on the list.
Okay.
Look,
What's
check
on there?
it.
What's your name?
Cruse?
Uh-huh.
Cruse.
Yeah.
There is no Cruse on the list.
Check it again.
Not
I've
like that
checked it
sissy
4
Tom
times
Cruise.
already.
There's no I.
Now listen, we don't go in for your type here.
What
These are
does that
respectable
mean?
people.
Listen.
Not people who come from
Now
trailers
you
with
s-
aluminium siding. Not people who urinate out of doors.
Let me tell
Okay,
you
now you
something.
stop before you say something real hurtful.
Because we have a double wide.
Well, isn't that delicious? Both of you leave at once.
We'll be back.
You. Security!
This is going to work. Just follow my lead. I know what
All
I'm
right,
doing.
honey.
Hello. We're with the Pope. We have been sent here by His Excellency to
Yes.
go to the wedding. She is stricken with the dumbness. She don't speak.
These outfits are ridiculous. Take those off immediately. Leave the premises. Security!
No, you don't
Security.
understand. It is important that we get inside.
Typical of American behavior.
We're Italiano. We're not Americans. Even though we love America and Donald Trump and making America great
The
again.
closest you've been to Italian is eating a pizza. Now leave immediately.
The power of Christ. compared-
Security! Out! Of all the gall. Oh, hello, sir.
Who's that then? Sergeant Pepperoni?
Idiots. Idiots.
We're off to see
The wedding?
Out.
Hello. Hello, yes, I'm the famous actress from Los Angeles. I was with Megan on the show Suits. I know you recognize me. Yes, I'm known for my height. Let me in, let's go. Here we go.
God,
Oh,
you
yes.
2 idiots will stop at nothing.
2? Excuse me? I
2
not.
people indeed.
Ain't got nobody.
Shut up.
Nobody.
This is what it looks like.
Out.
Oh, hello.
And you 2 must
It
be.
is Lady Antebellum and Lady Gaga.
Oh, God!
Hello.
Leave it. What? Want to be sick? And don't ever come back!
All right, so we have something very fun to show you today. So as we said off the top of the show, is we welcome an all-new audience today from the Louisville, Jefferson County, and surrounding area to the Live with Lee and Haley show family. We thought we should give you an illustration of what this show is all about.
Yeah, because we believe it is our duty to you, for the daytime audience, to fight boredom. Now, you may think we do that figuratively, and that is true.
Yes.
But what you don't know is we go from home to home to do it literally. Take a look.
In a world of midday monotony,
The circumference of the potato is vast.
where TV viewers are frozen in the grip of boredom, 2 heroes emerge to not only fight boredom, but to kick its
Aspirin. You got any aspirin? This guy's giving me a headache.
No, I do have some Midol, sugar britches.
All right, this guy's got to go.
We've got to get that remote.
All right, on the count of 3. 3, 2. She never waits for the count. Hello, handsome.
Most people think potatoes are a vegetable. They are not. They are a tuber.
You wouldn't mind putting a rush on this, would you?
I'm trying. Oh.
It's a common misconception.
What are you doing? Will you please hurry?
You can blanch them.
Do you even have the right remote?
You can parboil them. And, of course, you can mash them.
Live with Lee and Haley, Fighting Boredom, weekdays at 12:30.
Or at 1 o'clock if you're in Louisville.
Yes.
A big thank you to Adam Dotson, who I worked like a slave through my Marvel comic fantasy there, and the talented Steve Potato Head Broderson and the unfortunately named Jared Ham.
They work in our creative services department here at LEX 18, and they are amazing. Also, Jennifer Smith from our news department, she is amazing as well, and our sweet little intern who was the star of that whole segment, our intern, Allie Venata. Well, she was the victim, but she is wonderful. And the resident villain of the Live with Lee and Haley show, our good friend Chip Sebastian, who played Boredom for us. So that's the first time I've seen that in its entirety. It turned out so great.
Yeah, I've been working on that for like 2 months.
I know.
That's why I'm sick.
Yeah, that's why you're sick.